people as they go through their careers, as they go through their businesses. And I think who you are at the beginning of that relationship can shift, right? Mm-hmm. And is your partner prepared to adjust to the new you? So we have to also introduce that dynamic as well. I do think that a lot of these women become, and I don't want to say monsters, but some of these women do become monsters. And I think that the men are trying to say this, right? But we're attacking them. So, you know, to Ashley's point, we have to be fair. We have to recognize that everything that they're saying is not a lie. It's some truth to it. I think that we just don't personally witness it. And that's where I struggle.
Yeah. But I think that what's important, oh, I'm sorry, Ray, 1 second. I think what's important though is for everybody, men and women, you know, we talk about women doing this, but I think men need to do it too, that when they have encountered this woman that is that way, that they do not, you know, start to paint a broad stroke and say, okay, this is just how Black women are, or this is how women are, American women are, or young women are, or, you know, whatever. You know, a lot of times we'll see it. And, you know, I think what's happening is they may have experienced it once. Maybe they experienced it more than once, but that becomes the representation in their minds of women. Mm-hmm. And it's like, there's so many, you know, women who are not that way. And I'm like, because of that bad experience, you know, you now have that association between women and this type of behavior. Does that make sense? Like, you know, and so we have to check our traumas. You know, we have to deal with our traumas, because what's happening is now people are just kind of projecting all of that off onto other people. And then a man will hear, oh yeah, you know, my girl was like that too. And maybe his girl wasn't even like that, but he is the one who feels insecure about it. And so now, you know, you have this ripple effect. And to me, it's like an issue that is an issue that needs to be addressed. It's becoming like the standard, or like the representation. And it's like, I just don't know if that's true. You know, I don't know if that's true that, you know, every woman, you know, or even most who have achieved a certain amount of success are just these monsters, you know. Like I don't know.
I don't think it's every woman, but I do think that a lot of women who are in powerful positions are bringing that behavior home.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not saying every, but it's happening.
You think that it happens a lot?
Yeah.
Okay. Mrs. Understanding, you were gonna say something.
Yeah, I want to highlight that I don't think it's necessarily about a position or a certain income level or anything like that. Sometimes I think that women as wives, whatnot, we can be condescending. And it may not, because I've met women that are psychologists and they don't make more than they man, but they sure will psychoanalyze them in a whole day. Okay. And everything telling you that right there, you know, that's a projection. And she doesn't have to make more. Sometimes we could just be condescending, and that could be us not checking our trauma from seeing, you know, boys skate by through life, and we're doing double the work and things like that. So I do, like you said, you know, I think we have to give them some leeway. There are women that are monsters. There are women that are condescending, with or without a paycheck. So all this, would a woman earn more? No, because like what Miss Jovo said about teachers, I've seen women who teach like first grade go home and baby their husband, and it made me want to sit him down in a chair. So I don't know how them men do it, because sheesh, make you want to smoke a strong one.
I'm gonna say this though. I'm just gonna say it. Like, you know, I think a lot of times some of these guys, just like Janelle said in the beginning, they came from these environments where they were taken care of, but they were not necessarily raised. And then there's that assumption, there's that word again, or that expectation that, okay, I saw my mama do this, or my mama did this, that, and the third for me, or I saw my auntie or grandma do this. They nurtured, because, you know, that community likes to use that word a lot. They nurtured and took care of me. But then it's like, now I want you to be I want you to be superwoman, but you can't be too super. Like you can be superwoman, but you can't fly too far, or you can't be too powerful. Like it's too confusing. And so I think I'm gonna push a little bit. Like if men want to see change and evolution in these relationships, they need to become just as vocal as some of these women have in terms of what they expect out of the men. The men need to be vocal and they need to be assertive in communicating what they need in a relationship, not passive aggressive, not shaming, not blaming, none of these other defense mechanisms that they use to really dance around their personal issues and not just be and things that they do to avoid being direct. Like just say what you mean and mean what you say and say exactly what you want at home. Like, what's the biggest thing that some people fear? But again, just like Janelle said before, these are men too who have been rejected. So, and that circles back around to deal with your personal issues as it relates to rejection. If you're in a relationship, an adult relationship, grow up, start learning how to assert yourself and share what you need out of the relationship. Because I think a lot of times men jump into these situations with us and they assume we're going to be nurturing. They assume we're going to be doing all the housework. They assume they think that we're going to be caring for all the children. And I'm telling you, we just need to push them to be assertive and just say, hey, what do you need from me? I tell everybody all the time, like being married 18 years, the biggest thing that has helped my marriage is the fact that we talk. And we're going to talk about when changes happen in our house, we have to adjust our expectations on what we expect each other to do. There is no mind reading anymore. Okay?
Yeah.
So just like dude need to deal with the trauma for being rejected by Keisha in the 5th grade, he need to expect that, you know what, our relationship and marriage is going to evolve. We probably need to talk about that and what that's going to look like.
Miss Jovo, when did you become a safe space to your husband?
Janelle, one second. I love that question, but I did want to say, I just wanted to shout out some people in the chat. Thank you guys for joining us. I see some very interesting comments. Dara says, I've witnessed it, but generalizing isn't okay. And Cannon, she's actually going to pop in. She says it's more acceptable than for men to bring it home. I believe she's talking about, money. Women have to make themselves smaller in service of the male ego. And hey, girl, hey, Tawana. All right, Candace's gonna speak on that a little bit later. But I think what she's talking about is some of those societal pressures and the constructions that we have on men versus women and our roles in society. A lot of times men are expected to be the breadwinners, right? And so when they aren't, then there's a little bit of insecurity that may be at play there. All right. But go ahead, Janelle. You had a really good question.
No, I wanted to ask Ms. Jovo, when did you become a safe space for your husband? Because you talked about him being able to express how he felt. And I think that that's so hard for men to have that level of honesty. And I know that sometimes in a marriage that isn't established at the beginning, right? Like that comes over time. So at what year did you know you were a safe space for him?
Let me do the math. Because I can literally pinpoint and tell you. So probably when my daughter was, I think we were married for like probably 7-8 years when we really started being assertive with each other. And that's when the marriage counseling kicked in, And sidebar, if you married and never been to marriage counseling, make an appointment. It's not about fixing what's not broken. Marriage counseling is like tune-ups for your cars. You need them. Every car on the road need a tune-up, even a Tesla. So, so I highly recommend it. We learn how to be assertive and not just, you did this, you did that, you did this, and this. We were evolving because we were new parents. And for so long, it was just the two of us. So then when baby girl came along, it's like, okay, I'm getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning with these bottles. Okay, now we had a conversation when I was pregnant. Let's do some teamwork. And it was just like, well, babe, I'm working, and I'm like, flag on the play. We need some help in mediating this. And people need to be people don't need to be afraid to say that. Like, okay, my relationship is going through a transition. I need to know how to communicate with my man or my woman about how we're going to get through this. Like, women, and I hate to say it this way, but I got to just say what's on my mind. Like, that again, the expectation of Black women. Like, we like the glue that hold the puzzle pieces together for some of these guys, especially if he was that guy who grew up in the single parent home where it was just mom and mom did everything. Don't matter who mom was dating, who she was married to. He saw mom do everything. So then you think some men actually walk into a relationship and think they're going to, you know, that they're going to, their wife will emulate that. And like, I'm going to be totally transparent and honest with you, Janelle. Like, it was like 7-8 years into marriage until we learn how to truly communicate with each other. Like being assertive. Yes. And understand that the vulnerability is us saying we on the same team versus, you know, a versus battle. Of, you know, battle of the sexes. Because I think a lot of young marriages, I mean, I was 23 when I got married. You know, we go into it, oh, I love you. But then it's like, but I'm a girl and you're a boy. Who gonna win? You know? And it was like that for me for a while. Like, I had to really comprehend, understand that we needed to be on the same page. And the only way we're going to do that is if we learn how to talk to each other and not at each other.
And so, Janelle, I think you asked that question because Jovo was talking about how she thinks men should be more vocal in what they want in their relationships. But it's important that women are receptive to it, right?
Right.
And that they respond, receptive and respond, right? Receptive and responsive, I should say, to what men are saying. Because obviously, if you're in a relationship with somebody and, you know, you are condescending, or you are somebody who, you know, boasts of your accomplishments, or you have a very arrogant attitude, then, you know, nobody's going to want to deal with that. Not just your partner. Nobody wants to be around somebody like that. So if you have a husband or a boyfriend who's telling you these things, then you have to also be receptive. Is that why you were asking that question, Janelle?
Ashley, you took the words right out of my mouth.
Yeah.
And I think that I've personally witnessed situations where the woman minimized that man when he said something. You know, he literally expressed how he felt, and she was like, boy, going somewhere, you ain't talking about nothing. That's not. And it's like you don't see he's trying to express his heart to you, and you're just dismissing him, right? And so I think that as women, we have to get to a place where we're becoming easy to talk to and not just projecting how we feel all the time. So that's why I asked that question.
Yeah, it was work. And that's the other thing, you know, like learning how to communicate effectively, it takes work. And then it takes you being able to say, I have a hard time saying this, or I have a hard time expressing that. You know, it really, I mean, honestly, like I said, I'm pro marriage counseling. Like, do it at least one time, and then you're gonna want to go back. You are. I'm telling you, you're gonna want to go back.
All right, Candy wanted to add something to this conversation. Hey, girl, how are you?
Hey, ladies, can y'all hear me?
Yes,
loud and clear.
Y'all are like talking of some good stuff tonight. Having some good conversations. I just but the main thing that I just kind of wanted to point out, right, is that whenever I discuss some of the overarching, you know, ideas of like how we interact with each other as far as like patriarchal society demands, to your point, Janelle, everything that I'm saying still ends up going back to those like gender stereotypes and those gender roles, right? Women internalize those messages just as much as men do, but it's still rooted in the same thing, right? So it's like once we start addressing those things, then like that's how you get where a woman may be more dismissive of a man's feelings, because what is everybody always told? What do men say out their own mouth? What do everybody say? Men don't do all that feelings. Women are the ones with feelings. We logical. We don't do that. Da, da, da. You know what I mean? So it's like it just continues to reinforce the same shenanigans, right? It's coming from all the same place. But the point that I feel like gets lost in a lot of these conversations is that if you look at, and I'm not saying how I feel or what I think, right? I'm talking about based on empirical data that exists. Every measure, every time they actually study this and look into it, they come to the conclusion that women, because of gender roles and all of that, are the ones who end up doing the bulk of the emotional labor in relationships, because that's what's expected, right? So you have that. They also are the ones who are doing the bulk of the child rearing and the domestic duties, because that's the expectation. But then you also have a weird dichotomy, which I think you guys are kind of speaking to, is that at this point we're in 2022. So women are also doing the same providing that men are supposed to be doing, right? Or that men have been doing. So women also have their careers, they have all of that stuff, but then they still have that same level of responsibility that they had before they were doing the providing or having the work or the job or whatever. So they just have more responsibility. Like, if you can run down to me and be like, okay, like, what do men always say they're responsible for? Providing and protecting. And then, okay, I say the providing part. We get that. We understand what that means. That means you're paying bills. Okay, I understand that. Fine. The protecting part. When you get to talking into protecting, it's all of these weird, things that's really kind of ill-defined. Like, no, what are you actually doing? Give me a rundown of the stuff that you're doing, right? And it's not really distinct stuff that you can clearly be like, I'm doing this or I'm doing that. Like, if you ask a woman, like, no, what are you doing? They like, I take the children to school, or I take the kids to the doctor, or I'm making sure the bill actually got paid, whether I'm paying it with the money I made or with it. I'm still the one who's wrangling everything. You know what I mean? And organizing everything and doing a lot of that stuff. So it's like, when we really think about it, what is the expectation from them in these relationships and in this household? What are they supposed to do? Go to work, come home, play with the kids,
and
go
drink a
start
beer,
watching sports and be left alone. And you got to be, and that's what kind of frustrates me about the peace conversation, right? Because it's still rooted in these gender ideas that that a woman is like the nurturer that just nurtures everybody. And so you going to work, you coming home, you taking care of kids, you wrangling all of this stuff. And who is your peace? Where's your? I don't understand. Like, so then you got to somehow be this demure, Mrs. Fix It for everybody, and just this, like you said, like, I think in relationships people should be safe spaces for each other and things. It shouldn't just be, like I said, the bulk of the emotional labor shouldn't just fall on the woman. Like, it's not humanly possible. Like, I feel like that's what a lot of the problem comes in at, because it's just too much expectations. It's like we have to change. It's like, as much as we've changed as far as like technology and things like that, which have allowed us to kind of engage in the world differently, our mindsets are still like from 500 years ago. Like, it's not adding up. Like, it's like, that's what's causing a problem. And I think I saw on another show, somebody alluded to a study that had come out a while back that was like, yeah, because women are so much, they're unhappier than they were before. And it's like, yeah, but it's like, did you look at the reasons? It didn't say that they're unhappier because they don't get to be stay-at-home mom, which, again, Black women never did that, but whatever. It's not saying that they're unhappier now than they were before because they don't get to be stay-at-home moms. It's saying that they're unhappier now because not only do they get to go their careers and all that, but then they still got to do all the other stuff on their own, or most of it, without having a fair kind of equal partnership and an equal expectation. It's like a lot of stuff just automatically falls to them. Like,
millennial dads are a lot more
like, they're
active.
the ones a lot of times that's keeping and managing the relationships of the whole family, like making sure they're remembering people's birthdays. And I mean, just, it's a lot of stuff that is not sometimes quantifiable, but it's massive. And that's where I think what I was saying is that I do think that Janelle is right. And I do think that the reality is that a lot of the perception will be, oh, this woman, when they get successful, now they got this attitude and Wouldn't you have an attitude if you out here, you killing the game, providing, doing all of this stuff, then you got to come home and do everything in the house too, just like that. And then you also got to do the bulk of the emotional labor. And then this
I think a lot of men would say,
today.
well,
okay, take care of me, be my peace now. Like, what? Like, hold on. It's a lot of other stuff that got to happen around here, right? So I'm not saying that that's the example for every time that happens, but I do think that that's a big part. I think it's like we got to rethink this whole thing and all these expectations, because I feel like that's where the frustration is coming from, and that's what the problem is. It's like, as long as we just keep being like, women just gotta you got to do it. No, that's not the reality that we're living in 2022. Come on, let's learn how to be real, genuine partners and not just make it one person mostly responsible for stuff.
Right.
So
Janelle, what
that's all I wanted to add, y'all.
No, okay. So one thing you all are gonna realize about me, I'm biased to a certain extent because I have a lot of good men in my life, so I'm always advocating for them, right?